Alright, let's see if I unbroke this stuff. Joe-san. Let's get my tea. It's never too late for tea, right? You young cha la. Alright. 太嘅飲法啦。I did these roughs a while ago, so I finally printed them out today. Larger. So I see there's that page. Oh, good, that's working right there. So, I figured this would be a good spot to start with these. So, I think we'll just start with one page, though. Something new. I'm going to do the finished pencils on these. And then I think I should be able to see through these to ink on them. Again. Alright. I even made my own paper, so it's branded. You can see up there. Rainland Studios. I was having the weirdest time like trying to find stuff that would work. And I was digging around the internet and got to become really frustrating. Found a Muji shop in New York, so I picked up a little Muji ruler, which I'm excited about. But let's say 10.5 there. Just make sure I got that the right distance down so it's nice and level. But I do need inches. I had a little red ruler and it disappeared. It's very convenient. Oh, fong bina. That high untito. Bindo high go see ruler. I mean, I can use this one, but this will go with you. Actually, this one might even rotate at the proper. I put it here. Start at 0. I can move an exact 1/4 inch down. That's nice. Or up, probably better in this case. There we go. Alright. And then we're going to gap on you. That looks pretty level. I probably should have leveled these out while I was in the computer, huh? Alright. Of course, that assumes eight and 7 3/4. It's really a little bit hard to read. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Yeah, I wondered if it was off a little bit. Let's just put a line here. This line straight right here. That makes a big difference. Right. Already erasing, huh? Scoot this over a bit more. While trying to avoid throwing everything on the floor. Ugh. There we go. And I have to work with widening that one, so we'll start here. Oh, look, another scatty. What's up with that? Alfred. Parlez-vous français? Oh, hello, over there on Twitch. What medium do I use the most? Well, it's complicated. I use a lot of different things, and lately I've been doing a lot of stuff with ink, but I have a big background using oil paints and gouache. I was actually doing some gouache landscape painting out in a recent trip out west. So I've kind of a mixed background. Never really been much for acrylics, though. But other than that, yeah, gouache, watercolor, ink, oil. So it's got loud. So yeah, it's a big-ish question for me. Alright, I think I meant to scoot that one in this way. Same with you. So yeah, I do a lot of different things. I have a bachelor's in illustration and a degree in painting from the New York Academy of Art. So I'm not quite sure why this one's so offset. I appreciate that. I love my t-shirt. Yeah, actually a gift from a Hong Kong student. Kiki, student of mine at Ringling. She went home early one of the COVID semesters, and she brought this back. Super cheap. It's already kind of falling apart, but you know, I actually had someone ask me about it today, which was kind of funny. That doesn't happen too often, but someone's like, "What's HK?" It's Hong Kong. Hong Kong. It's like, what is that? And some made-up words for an imaginary place, right? I'm trying to think what happened here. Oh, that's why. So this really should be over here, another eighth of an inch. I forgot to put the trim lines on the. Well, I had them. I just put them in the bottom layer so they didn't print, but they're kind of still here. There should be another eighth of an inch coming out over here, I guess. But I decided I wanted to do some of these kind of as a training exercise. So, so title. Okay. Here is a tree hopper. That's our working title. Sheet 1, B. And this is page 2. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, a student of mine from Hong Kong. She had a couple of Hong Kong students that year. Q and Kiki. So that was fun to have them in class. The one named Q, she'd never heard of the character named Q from Star Trek. But, you know, can't know everything, I guess. I'm glad to be back here and working on stuff. I got whatever kind of nasty cold was going around. I came back from my little trip to see family, and was feeling really good, and then immediately got sick for like 3 solid days. So I was like, oh, I'm excited to be back, getting back to work, and then couldn't do anything. An interesting kind of opportunity popped up recently too, so it will affect how I'm handling my online teaching course thing for those that have checked it out. Removing access to it in a couple months to new subscribers. So should be interesting to see how that works out. Hopefully it goes really well. If it does, it'll give me a lot more headspace for headspace for what's going to say the kind of doing creative stuff. Don't have to worry about marketing it. So that should be good. I'm excited for it. See what happens. And if it doesn't work out, maybe I'll learn a thing or two, which is always, optimal anyway, so. Definitely even this out. Yeah. Friday nights, I don't expect to be too busy. But, I want to get back to it anyway. So we got that center line right on there. And that comes down to here, obviously. All right. Well, it's painting is good to do regardless. I think it's something I enjoy. Actually, I found a painting I left in my scanner from spring break. Last time I was painting before a recent time I was painting. It's actually an interesting challenge when I was out there because it was so silvery outside. It was like really hard to paint it because everything was so light. Actually, this is older than that. This is just last fall, or summer maybe, spring, something like that. But I had some paintings I did this spring where went out there. It was so silvery because the leaves hadn't come in yet, and it was a real challenge to paint it because the contrast was very high key, and it's just really difficult. Turned out to be an interesting challenge, but all the same, it was a lot. So, it's good though. Yeah, that was how I spent my summer before leaving Hong Kong. Was painting outside. So, yeah, I think someone had a question earlier about the mediums. Hopefully my fan isn't too loud. It turned up all the way. We had a heat wave this week up and down the East Coast. It was basically for the non-Americans out there. It was like 40 degrees outside. So it was like 110, 112. Feels like 112, 110 Fahrenheit. Very, very hot. And it was up and down East Coast. And made my upstairs really, really warm. But it gets warm here in the summer anyway, so it tends to be like the warmest room. I think partially because of my computer in here. And that's, you know, I'm sure there's worse problems out there in the world, but, you know, room gets really toasty up here. Let's see. But what's stuck in here? Yeah, so I mean, it gets hot in Hong Kong. I spent my whole last summer there, outside. You know, doing those little watercolors outside in Hong Kong. That was a lot of fun. Sweating on my little stool, which I still have. I really enjoyed that last summer. It's such a relief to not be working for SCAD anymore. So, yeah, it was pretty intense. It was funny, I drove out to Utah from here. It's a very, very long drive. It's a little over 2,200 miles, which is that like 5,000 kilometers, something like that? It takes about 2.5 days if I do it at a pretty quick pace. And anyway, I ran into a problem I have never had with my car. It was overheating, and I was a little bit concerned about it. And then it stopped doing it once I got back once I got into Utah originally. And then, you know, I did the things I needed to do. I got oil change, I got a car wash while I was there in Utah, visiting my family. Yeah, very responsible. And then I ran into the same problem going east. And it didn't really pop up until the last day I was driving. And I realized that it had to do with bugs in my grill. So I'm not familiar with cars. You know, I don't drive them. There's a radiator in the car that helps dissipate the heat coming out of the engine, and further, you know, the engine coolant in that. And then, anyway, if that grill in the front, that's the radiator. If you drive through too many insects, it'll clog your radiator and prevent it from dissipating heat. And that's what happened to me. Luckily, in my little kind of camper situation I have in my car, I've got a small hose. And so I was able to find a rest stop that had an outlet for a hose. And use that to hose it down. And problem disappeared right away. So that was a little bit of adventure. I was like, you know, hit a certain speed and we're going uphill, and it wasn't sure what was causing it because it was didn't seem to be directly related to speed or RPMs or if I should use the F pencil on this instead. It's because this is really light on top of this blue. Let's see. But you know, lesson learned. You know, but I was really nervous to drive out west, so I had to really kind of slow down, below a certain speed to keep it from overheating. I wish I'd realized what it was then. If you drive across Kansas and Missouri, and you drive through a whole lot of bugs. So That's nice. You know, I have my it's my little Xterra project too, so I don't have to stop at a hotel. Um, I can pretty much crash wherever I please, and so I would sleep at rest stops or on my way back. The first night I spent out in the desert before coming back into. Um, yeah, well, so Hong Kong's an interesting place because it's like a country that's a city, sort of, right? But yeah, so it's good. I like traveling that way. It is really exhausting, because it's 2.5 days of driving. Hey, Bosch. So yeah, it'd be fun to travel around Greece. I see like those kind of van lifers out in Europe. I just thought that would be interesting. Apparently, I can ship my car out there, so I could do that theoretically. It costs like I think around $3,000-4,000. I could ship it to say Holland or something, and then travel around if I wanted to, I guess. But thought about trying to find an opportunity to do that somehow. I don't know what it would require to get that set up. Mhm. Hmm. Yeah, it's well, especially if you want to drive outside of England, right? You got to learn to drive on the other side of the street, on the right side of the street, the correct side of the street. Unless you're planning on driving in Japan, but it's not hard to learn to drive. It takes some practice, but definitely doable. You know, I figured it out when I was 16. Yeah, I definitely recommend it if you haven't jumped on that yet. It's a good thing to learn. Hmm. Keep bumping into you. Let's see. Good morning or evening. For me, it's evening. We are hitting 9 o'clock. Well, I didn't know your fiance passed away. Did not know that. I'm sorry to hear that. I wondered why you were back in Hong Kong because we were excited to be in Greece. I feel bad about not wearing my Hong Kong shirt before that semester ended because I moved away and I had meant to wear it during the semester and I just kept forgetting. And then I've been wearing it since. That'll go there. Ouch. Yeah, so running the fan super high here because, well, one of the reasons is, again, it's been hot outside, but the other thing we kind of run into here is this is the room where all the computer stuff is running, and so it gets bonus toasty in here. Yeah, it's just driving me crazy. Yeah. Well, one of the things you run into with iPads is I found at least with mine is that they overheat if you leave them plugged in, which you kind of need to if you're doing them with art with them, unless you got them like maybe propped up or something. But like the overheating becomes obvious because the pen will start skipping around, or like do weird things, not quite make a mark or something. It'll do some weird stuff when if it's plugged in after a while. I've found anyway. But yeah, the heat in Hong Kong was very impressive with the humidity there being so intense in the summer. The monsoon season. Looked at maybe trying to set up a kind of a student trip out there. The problem is the summer is like the best time for the university to do that kind of thing. So you would basically have like a couple weeks here in the U.S. kind of getting ready, and then we'd go over there for like 3 weeks or a month or something like that. And, sketch and draw. Like the professor that does that in Florence. But the problem with the summertime in Hong Kong is it rains all the time, or a lot. I don't know if there's like certain weeks or something where it's kind of more dry, but so. But it's something I'm thinking about. I'd like to maybe try and talk to some people about setting that up. Another option would be going out to Eastern Europe or something like that, like Prague. Spend a few weeks downtown sketching there. There's a lot to look at and all that. I just have to kind of advise students to be very careful what they do after dark, where they go as a group, what they participate in. Just because you never know. Or Lithuania, because I know Lithuania pretty well. But something I'd like to try setting up. Yeah, because we have a professor that does that to begin with. Students going out to other places, well, typically to Italy, not to Florence, which is, Florence is an amazing place too. So that'd be hard to maybe pull students off of. Thought I'd been looking maybe if there's like a way to do it in the fall, but um, so yeah. I don't know if there's like certain times in the summer where maybe the rain goes away, or I mean, it's not like it's raining every single day, but it's not like it's like nice and cool and cozy in Italy in the summer. Ugh. Out of the way. I appreciate that. Hopefully it'll end up being okay. This is another little test run. Yeah. I'll have to just maybe look and see what the weather looks like. Because I think that'd be really, it'd be good for the students. It's related kind of to my job here, right? Because a lot of concept art and that's based off of Hong Kong. It's had a big influence on entertainment, and it's a source of inspiration for major, games and films and all of that animation. Ghost in the Shell or Blade Runner or lots of video games. Look at those entertainment sources, and so I think it'd be really relevant for me to bring out. Mostly September, October. Okay. Yeah, because if I could, say bring a group out in June or end of May, June, that'd be really good. I certainly would love to go back. Hey, it's nice too because these cities like Hong Kong, or maybe even going up to. I would love to do Japan too. Maybe like 1 year do Hong Kong, 1 year do Japan, another year maybe Taiwan or something like that. We have a Taiwanese professor. She's native Taiwanese, so she's made that very clear. She is not Chinese. She is Taiwanese. I didn't realize there was like a native kind of Taiwanese ethnic group. I just assumed it was a Chinese island. Shows what I know, but she's really big into animation. Yeah. Hey, I've never been there. I know Professor Johnson, Carl Johnson. He lives in or lived in Taiwan. I assume he's still there. I know he talked about trying to come back to the United States, but I don't think he ever did. I think his whole family's, his wife and his kids are all there with them. He actually moved his whole family back to Taiwan after before he got fired. He was the year before. He was nervous about it, and so he sent his wife and kids back to Taiwan. He was living in his studio. I wondered about that because he kept asking me questions about how I managed, living in my studio in Fotan, and I didn't realize he had done that. Okay. Speaks the dialogue, the what's it called? The Putonghua. Yeah, but maybe going, having a need to go back to Hong Kong that would help revive my interest in studying Cantonese. Sadly, there's not a lot of opportunities to practice here in the United States, so. Do all the former SCAD bees hang out there in Hong Kong? You guys all see each other at all? I think you sat next to Chocolate, right? In the illustration class? Or was that different? No, maybe that was somebody else. It's been a while. It's like, my dog, I adopted him 8 years ago. Well, no, 2017. Yeah, 8 years ago. 21st of June. I remember because on my calendar I marked it down. That was this week. Actually, maybe I kind of missed it because I was sick. But he didn't seem to care. Doesn't really keep track of the calendar. He was born around the same time I came back to the United States, so in October. Or when I left, actually, rather when I left Hong Kong in October, I think, or September. So. But yeah, if that's the case, if it's not, I'll have to look and see what the weather has been like in Hong Kong this summer and see if it's worthwhile. Because I feel like that would be a really good thing to do to organize for the students. Though I'd have a hard time telling them not to say go to Florence with Professor Alcorn. All right, I think I didn't Vivian get married. If it's the same one I'm thinking of, sometimes it gets difficult to remember. But I think I saw Vivian got married. I saw Pumpkin Jen got married. So congratulations to her. I didn't know she was a big time YouTuber in Hong Kong. She was in my figure drawing class. It's the same Vivian. Vivian's really, really talented. I think did a lot of really nice work. For all the names, but Janet, I'm not sure who that is. Jasmine, maybe, I think I know who that is. Is she doing like yoga stuff on Instagram now or something? I think I saw Jasmine doing that. Certain names it was interesting the names that Hong Kong girls would pick for themselves because they were and they were kind of like these old Hollywood names like Vivian or not Jasmine so much, but what's the other one I saw? Cheryl and some other things. Not that Jasmine. Okay. There's probably a bunch of different ones. I didn't have all the students, so I don't remember all of them. But I did see a Jasmine on, I think on Instagram. She suddenly changed to doing yoga. So your Jasmine doesn't do yoga on Instagram all of a sudden. Are you sure? Yeah, there are a lot of jasmines. Okay, Sharon, that sounds familiar too. I feel like she was in my class. I need to update my. Actually, I added a bunch of recent student work to my teaching website, the Meyer Professor stuff I taught at mostly at Ringling because it's kind of what's on the site at the moment. I threw a bunch of that. There's actually some Hong Kong based images from my Hong Kong students. Some Korean stuff, I had a bunch of Korean students. Some Chinese and etc. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, the teaching part and the students of that in Hong Kong. Not the SCAD part so much, but that was a whole other animal there. I saw what's his face, the Yergers, on my trip actually through the country. So Jonathan Yerger and Whitney. Whitney worked in the admin office. But they were only there in Hong Kong for like a year and a half. You might have had a class with them. So that was had lunch with them in Indianapolis at this Ducati place. I did see them once, or maybe twice. I went did some digital landscape painting up at the top of the mountain above the road that kind of goes up the mountain behind my building in Fotan. I went up to the top of that, and And I was sitting there painting, and suddenly a whole troop of them like came walking right past me. I was a little bit nervous because you never know how monkeys are going to act, but they didn't bother me. So actually, I think I was actually Skyping with my family at the time. Back when we used Skype. Kind of showed them the video of them walking right past me. So I did get to see the monkeys in Photon. They stole your water bottle. Yeah, it's probably better just let them have it too, right? Don't want to mess with the monkeys. They can be aggressive. Yeah, and again, when I saw them, there was a big group of them. So I was a little bit nervous about it, but I just kind of didn't move much and let them move along. I didn't have any food or snacks with me, so I didn't have anything really of interest for them. Saw a monkey in Japan once walking. I forget the really long name. All the big the Torii Gate kind of mountain there in Japan, in near Osaka, Kyoto area. Big monkey. White monkey with a pink face, sitting in a tree or watching people walk by. Looking very wise, probably thinking about bananas or snacks or something. Wondering why all these people are wandering around in this forest. The big place I hear monkeys are a real problem is in India. See them attacking people and stealing their stuff. It just seems like it's a real big issue. Hong Kong kind of keeps them under control because they sterilize a lot of the monkeys to keep the population at a certain size. But do you know why the monkeys are there in Hong Kong? They're actually there for a very specific reason. I found out. But there's I guess it has to do with reservoirs, and there's a very specific I guess, plant that grows up in the mountains next to the reservoir. It's kind of a weed. And anyway, apparently the weed, you can put toxins into the water. And so the monkeys, I guess, they eat that plant. And so they're there to kind of manage that plant, keep it from getting into the system too much. So they only need so many monkeys up there. And then I guess the monkeys are kind of a unique breed. I guess they were monkeys that escaped from a circus or something. Usually, so I remember reading this somewhere. I think they mixed or something with a local monkey population or something. There's a whole history about them. It's been a long time since I've read it, but so you may not want to trust my memory. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting. Yeah, there used to be tigers in Hong Kong. Was a history museum. You can go there. You can see a lot of that there. I only went there once. With SCAD, we had to have like some kind of scheduled field trip for all of our classes, and apparently we didn't actually have to go on the field trips. We just had to have them. Because that was one of those weird kind of SCAD things. It's weird because I've kind of started forgetting a lot of the weird stuff. So people ask me like, it was really bad. What happened at SCAD? It was so bad. Been having a hard time remembering a lot of it lately, which I guess is good. I know the professor I said that I met out in Indiana, his wife, like, she doesn't want to talk about SCAD at all. She had a really, really miserable experience working in the admin office. But yeah, it was like weird assignments like that from the school. We had to take everybody on a field trip. So if you wondered why, like all of your classes had like field trips or outside of school things kind of scheduled all the time. There was always like this initiatives being run by the school to. I think they were there really as other people's goals. So basically, an admin had to have some kind of goal that they showed they were achieving, and those goals involved getting other people to do things. So, like one time, we had to like take turns coming in on Fridays and hang out in the cafeteria, in the cafe on campus, and which is weird. It's like we had to come on Friday because they wanted us to hang out with the students, be seen as people with the students on Fridays. And we would hang out in the cafe, and none of the students would come and talk to us because who wants to spend their Fridays hanging out with their professors? It's just kind of silly, I have a feeling 20-year-old students got other things they want to do, like get their homework done, or do fun things than hang out with their professors in the cafes on Fridays. There weren't even that many students on campus on Friday, so. But that was one of them. I think that was one of Derek Black's things. Yeah, yeah. We had to have field trips. I think I took students on like a sketching trip on a hike once. If there was like an art show, like a art fair or something like that, I'd have them go to that. Remember there was like a Warhol show. There was the Caravaggio thing at the what's it, that art society downtown. It's kind of sticking out the side of the mountain. Has the big Buddha head laying down. They had like this Caravaggio kind of thing there. So we had to find like outside of school activities. And so yeah, we always had all these little weird initiatives that the school would require. But yeah, that happened all the time. Derek tried to get us all to keep journals one semester. He was sharing his journal with us. When he kind of got into the admin thing, there was all these weird things he had to do. Yeah, poor Dr. Ferris, right? He's his art department he was teaching at in Cleveland. They just shut down the whole thing. It's pretty wild. I've never heard of that before, but they shut down the entire. I don't know if they're having like kind of weird budgetary problems in the state or whatever, but he lost. He had tenure. So tenure's like where they really can't fire you, or it's very difficult to do that. But they um, yeah they shut down the entire art department except for graphic design. So he lost his job there. He's working for a historical society up in upstate New York now, though, which I think actually might be more interesting. I mean, he's not in the classroom anymore, but he's a very passionate teacher. He's, and I don't think Susan ever got another teaching job. Yeah, because they fired all of the history professors the year after I was fired. I think one of them didn't get fired because he had a new job, but he was quitting anyway. But Ferris and Susan, they both were fired by SCAD too. But he found another job, and it's I think it's actually an interesting thing for him to do as a historian. Work for this historical society. Get out of the university system. And it's nice, probably nicer than Cleveland. Cleveland's a troubled city. It's not the worst city, but Yeah. So, yeah, the reason they got rid of all the history staff there was they apparently, um, I guess Susan kind of led the way where it kind of reduced the number of students in each class. Because it's a really hard to grade papers. Like it's pretty easy to grade artworks, right? Either works or it doesn't, kind of a thing. You can go into more specific, like in a critique or something like that. But to grade papers, you got to correct grammar and structure, and there's a whole bunch of like complicated stuff with that. And they were trying to get their class sizes down because they were just putting in crazy hours. And so they got them to do that, and then at the end of that next year, they fired all of them. So that's why that happened. It's because they were trying to get more reasonable working conditions. And having gotten them, they then lost their jobs as a result, which is basic SCAD behavior. They don't like people standing up for themselves. So all right, 10 o'clock, huh? Well, they got one panel mostly done. Yeah, but if it's not raining a lot until later in the summer, I'll have to look into this Hong Kong thing because I think that would be a really unique experience and an advantage for American students, anyways. It's a big, safe city, but also everyone speaks English, so they don't have to worry too much about language barrier. Once in a while, sure, but that's always the scary part for people traveling overseas. Oh yeah. I think Ferris might be glad he's out now with all the Chat GPT things being used now for essays, which is really, really sad. Students not wanting to do their own work. When it comes to writing, at least. It seems like that gets in the way of your education by not writing your own papers. I guess a lot of professors are starting to remove open note tests and go back to handwritten ones as a result. So yeah, it's a interesting set of problems dealing with the. So yeah, so he might have dodged the bullet with that, gotten out before that became a big problem in school. So they used to be able to like run papers through these cheating machines. Maybe find where people had plagiarized stuff from, and because you could buy papers online on different subjects and whatnot. Yeah, it's I don't, we had a big, I think you probably talked about it on here before. We had a big controversy here last fall where a teacher replaced student work with AI images, and led to a roundtable and a bunch of other things. But yeah, it's interesting because in the art department, at least, as far as the art stuff goes, students do not want to use it at all. They are 100% opposed to it. It's like literally like 99% of the students, when polled, have said they want nothing to do with it. And so I would kind of use the little things when they would come out. Like I used ChatGPT a little bit when it first came out. I was like, oh well, that's interesting. And there's other, the visual ones as they would come out. I think first started really seeing them in like 2012. I think 2011. There were certain kind of image generators where you kind of draw like brown and green and blue, and it would kind of put things in those places. And then there was one that like would make faces. I was like, that's interesting, or it might be useful, or something like that. I didn't really know where everything came from at that point. I just thought, oh, that's interesting. But I never really used it beyond like looking at it. And now there's all kinds of studies coming out where it's kind of demonstrating that it causes cognitive damage. So by relying on it, you stop thinking for yourself. And so when you stop thinking for yourself, it should be obvious. It was obvious to me a few years ago that you're going to lose your ability to think, to imagine, to form your own ideas, because you just kind of get inputs, and which should be obvious. But yeah, there's studies showing that right now. Yeah, and then one of the things they're finding, I don't know what DeepSeek's stats are, but the stuff's is really low accuracy. So you're getting a lot of information very, very quickly, but it will make up sources. So it'll show you, oh, this comes from this source right here, but that source doesn't actually exist, or that source has nothing to do with the subject. I think ChatGPT has something like a 30 to 40% accuracy or inaccuracy rate. Claude is proven to have a 60% inaccuracy rate. It's wrong 60% of the time. And one of the things they're finding is that with more data, so the more data they feed these machines and the more computing power they give them, the less accurate they are. Which is interesting because people, kind of the argument was always, oh, well, more data, more accuracy, better results, right? That should be the expectation. So it's like you can't trust it at all. And so yeah, those statistics are really, really frightening. It's really interesting because they're all these companies, Google and Microsoft and Adobe and Meta, they're all dumping billions of dollars into these systems, OpenAI. And the systems don't actually work very well. They just look like they're working well, which isn't quite the same thing. And then they're wrong. And the funny part too is they're actually not generating a profit for anybody. So the only company making a profit off of AI is NVIDIA, because they're building well, in any gold rush, the person that builds the shovels or sells the eggs to the people digging for gold is the one that makes money usually. And so NVIDIA has been making a lot of money because they build the systems, the GPUs that are used for building out these systems. Yeah, it's a real problem, and the people that hype it up, they don't seem to understand that it's not what it claims to be. People are believing they were going to get real AI out of it, so like actual real thinking machines, and that's just not what it does. Anyway, overdoing this in here, making his face way too lumpy, way too much like mine. But we'll look at that, I think, tomorrow. So, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, something to kind of point out to your bosses in that. It's like, it's especially if it's like you're bumping into this where like you're making to use it, you don't really want to use it, and they think it's being more efficient or better, and they're kind of pointing out that it has real problems. I think hope they'll help people kind of stop using it. So anyway, I should stop here, call it a night, and since I was sick last week, I should probably go to bed, But some good progress on that, and feels like it's going in the direction I want to go. So we'll see how I feel in the morning. But anyway, have a good night, everybody. We'll talk to you all later.